Now, how do you draw down your money if you have a lump sum, if you don't want to buy an annuity? Well, there are lots of rules. People have rules of thumb. Take 5%, 6%, 3%, 4%, whatever. We take a simple scenario. Assume you're going to earn 4.5%. You invested in some high-quality bonds. Inflation's going to run 3%. You can guarantee it. Take it to the bank. And you start withdrawing money at any of these different amounts, 3% a year to 8% a year, and that you increase the withdrawal each year to reflect inflation. When will you run out of money? If you take 8% a year, you're going to run out at age 79. That's not even your life expectancy. If you do it at somewhere between 5 and 6%, it'll last till your life expectancy. Seems reasonable. Except, for half the people in the room, I've got great news for you. And horrible news. The great news is, half the people outlive the life expectancy. The bad news is, you just ran out of your money, and what do you expect to eat? So you take down a little less. And if you want to make sure you don't outlive the money, you're somewhere between 3 and 4%. Now we ran this on a number of different scenarios. We looked at it if you're at 4.5, 5 3/4. 5 3/4 is the expected value if you take a 50-50 stock bond portfolio with some expenses like in a mutual fund. Then we ran it through the what ifs, the multiple scenarios. What's the probability that you'll run out of money? So let's start it with our example of you take out 4% a year and inflation's 3% a year. If you earn 4.5%, you're going to run out at 96. If you earn 4.5%, you run out at age 96. If you earn 5 3/4, your money will last till age 106. That covers most people. But when you run it through if you actually invested to try to get the 5 3/4, there's a 4% probability, 1 in 25, that the markets will work against you and you'll run out of money at age 90. A 14% chance that you'll run out by age 95, even though you expected it to last till 106. And we have a problem. If the markets don't cooperate and you run out of money at age 90, how many 90-year-olds do you know can afford to go back, have the capability of going back to work and making more money? You're better off trying to work at age 65 till 70 at something when you have more physical capabilities than trying to find a job at age 90. I mean, there are some 90-year-olds who still work. I know some, but there are not many of them. And if, let's say, you did the scenario of taking out 5% a year, the odds are over 50-50 you'd run out of money by age 95. 25% chance you'd run out of money by age 90, even though the expectation was that you'd have enough money till age 94. So this highlights the fact that, let's take the last line. This shows really the what ifs. At 5 3/4%, you're expecting the money to last till age 86. And yet there's nearly a 40% chance, 39% chance that the money will run out by age 85. There's risk. And people who are very elderly can least afford some of these risks. Now, on these returns, I just have to give a comment that the content is for informational and educational purposes only. Although they may contain information relating to approaches to investing or types of securities investments that you might buy, sell, or hold, none of this information is intended or should be construed as any advice, recommendation, or endorsement from us as to any legal, tax, investment, or other matter. As with any statistical analysis, the actual performance of an investment portfolio will be different from the illustrations. Guaranteed. So what is some of the summary of this, Lane? I think this is one for you. We'll let you go on this one.
Spend a few moments summarizing the risk. We talked about the investment risk, which is the volatility and investment return. I like to look at that as investing in the wrong market at the wrong time. You know, the people that buy high and sell low, that type of problem. The longevity risk, we spoke a lot about the longevity risk. The fact that people are living longer, the fact that no one really knows when they're going to die. They could live till 99, they could die at 65. And as Ethan said, most people underestimate their life expectancy. Most people say, I'll live 10 years or I'll live 15 years. Life expectancy is a term that's used in a lot of financial planning. However, it's the age at which half the people have passed away. So half the people need more money than that. Half the people don't need that much money. Inflation, it erodes purchasing power, particularly for those on fixed income. We have a lot of retirees. You've got to get to the point where you have enough income not only to meet current living expenses, but also have some left over to meet future increases in those expenses. We talked about unpredictable expenses. Long-term care, for example, would be one, that type of thing. And then the interest rate risk. Interest rate is when you annuitize when rates are low. One of the other interest rate risk is that right now, as you know, interest rates are very low. And so individuals that were relying on, say, a 5% return on their CDs aren't getting 5%. So they have less retirement income. So the interest rate risk itself is multifaceted. What we're speaking here is if you try to annuitize, you try to buy an annuity when interest rates are low, you're going to get a very small annuity, as we showed in one of the examples. We talked about some of the other risks. The timing of retirement was important. That combines the investment risk and the interest rate risk, the timing. The biggest risk, as I see, is not saving early enough and not saving enough. People need to start saving at 25 or 30 years old. They don't need to wait till they're 35 or 40 years old to begin saving. And they need to save substantially more than they think that they should. One of the other problems with the defined contribution plan is what we call leakage. It's not on the slide, but some of the major mutual fund companies have said that the amount of money that leaves defined contribution plans each year is somewhere between 3 and 4%. 3 and 4% of the money goes to hardship withdrawals that are used for purposes other than retirement, loans that are not repaid, and then rollovers that are not, money that's distributed in lump sums and not rolled over. And the trend is that it's been increasing recently. Now, part of that's the economy. There's a lot of economic hard times for employees, and so they're taking hardships, they're taking loans. But what they're doing is they're using their money now that's really meant for retirement. And so it's going to create a problem down the future. Another risk, it would be absent from work. Either your periods of time when you're not working, periods of time when you're disabled. If you're disabled, you're not going to really be able to save for retirement. So that's this other type of risk that we have. And as Ethan mentioned, employers will change their plan. A company could go bankrupt, a company could freeze their plan in your mid-career. Those are problems that you have. One thing that I meant to mention earlier was in a defined contribution plan where you're contributing and the employer is providing a match, what percentage of the people actually take advantage of that? A recent survey said that about 30% do not take advantage of that particular benefit. So of the people that are in 401k, 403b type plans, about 30% on average don't participate in the plans and therefore are not building up enough retirement income. Now, one of the solutions to that, we'll be talking about solutions later, is the automatic enrollment features that have been added to the law to encourage people to participate, and that makes a big difference. What happens when you're not saving, when you've got a plan? Let's say you've planned it out, and you think you need a contribution of 10% of pay during your lifetime, and you're going to retire at age 67. What happens if you lose money? Say you're 40 years old and you lose money. What should you do? Well, first of all, you should get your asset value back to where it should be so you can contribute more money. The choices are to increase your contribution, to retire later, as Ethan talked about. Instead of retiring at 65 or 62, maybe retire at 65 or 67 or 68. Another one is to work part-time in retirement. People that don't have enough income but are forced to retire or do retire become burger flippers or greeters or baggers. You have that type of job. You could keep your retirement age at 67 and just lower it. Just won't have the same standard of living. But what should you do? What should you do is you should do your planning. You should contribute more money to make up for the loss. Now, in a defined benefit plan, what does the sponsor have to do? Remember that chart where the benefit is defined in a defined benefit plan? The employer has to contribute more money because they've made that promise. They've got a contractual a promise to pay that much. But for you, as an individual, you should put more money in. But what we found is during this last downturn, people are not doing that. There was a very small increase in contributions by individuals. What reality is there should have been a much larger increase because of that. And again, going back to the interest rate risk, there we go, the interest rate risk. Individuals who are retiring today, the interest rates are low. The question is, are the interest rates going to stay low? They're at historically low levels. There's some indication there may be because as baby boomers retire and they want to annuitize, for example, or they want to invest in fixed income investments to have that security, there's going to be an increased demand for fixed income, and that's going to necessarily drive down the interest rates. So there might be a time when individuals thought that that they would be able to live on the interest on their money, and they're not going to be able to do that at this point. I want to spend a few moments talking about pooling of risk. The longevity risk is a risk that can be pooled easily. So what is pooling? It's a way to manage some retirement risk. Plans that do that are defined benefit plans. In a defined benefit plan, the sponsor pays the benefits, or the trust pays the benefits. The plan sponsor basically has to fund for the average person. So if the average age of death was 85, they need to basically have enough money at retirement to pay for that. Annuity contracts do the same thing, and as well as Social Security, which of course is a defined benefits system. I want to give a simple example, and what a pool risk is. A pool risk is to spread the risk over a group of individuals, and the group can plan collectively for the average outcome. That's what happens in a defined benefit plan. That's what happens in Social Security. Non-pooled is the individual bears the entire risk. So for example, in Ethan's example, we saw that people could live to 90, 95, 100. If I'm insuring my own risk, I've got to be sure my money lasts that long. So that's what you have when you have a non-pool risk. Whereas if I go out and buy an annuity, the insurance company is going to assume on average I get about 20 years of payments. I might get 30 or 40 years of payments. I might get 10 years of payments. I might get 5 years, but on average it works out. The illustration that we have is we have 1,000 individuals who are age 65. And just to keep things simple, we're ignoring inflation and we're ignoring investment returns. Their annual living expenses are $20,000. So these individuals, 1,000 individuals, need this much a year. Now I've made some really basic assumptions here, and these are just for illustration purposes. These are not according to any mortality table. But let's assume that 25% of the people will die at age 70. That means they'll need 5 years of payments, which means they'll need $100,000 to pay their benefits. 50% of the people will die at age 80, which is 15 years of payments, so each of them will need $300,000 to fund their plan. And then 25% of the people, and we don't know who they are. You know, when you enter this group, you don't know which group you're in. But 25% of the people will die at age 90, and they'll need $500,000 to fund their benefit. So what happens individually? If you knew when you were going to die, then you would know whether you need 100, 300, or 500. Of course, you don't know that. So you all have to count on the 500, and that's what these slides are showing you.